It's Jodi Day.
It's Jodi Day.
Feels like it's been way too long since.
Yeah, way too long. Yeah, I see Sal in the chat. Did you see yesterday I got a $2 super chat from an account called Jodi Arias?
I did. I've seen that Jodi Arias around a little bit. I don't know who that is, but that's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I kind of hope it's her.
It might be.
Yeah.
It might be. Jodi Arias has been floating around. What chat did I first see her in? Man, I can't remember. Maybe it was yours from earlier yesterday or something.
Well, we never know.
That I was on, but
she might show up today. We don't know. Maybe she has computer privileges in prison.
No, let's hope so. Maybe she gets YouTube. Yeah, you never know. By the way, you can give me all the thumbs up and all the watch hours, and just give Nick a super chat or two. This is the last day for it, really, because I think I'm fairly close to being monetized. So next Jodi stream, you might be able to super chat just me. We'll see how that goes.
No. I need all the money I can get to the trip to the United States in August. So, yeah.
All right, fair enough. Still super chat, Nick.
Yeah.
Hey, Lou.
Now, today on the menu, first we have the final 20 minutes of Dr. DeMarte. Then it's Travis' friends are taking the stand. That I haven't seen a second of because I want to be as fresh as possible going into.
I want to know what they have to say.
Yeah.
These are rebuttal witnesses, so they're called specifically to rebut the BS that Jodi spewed. And so I'm really curious to see what these guys have to say.
Oh. Sal, are you going to Missouri, Dave? I don't think you are.
No. Nope. I'll be going to Denmark, actually, while that's going on.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'll be going to Denmark and meeting up with Baker and Mats.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going over to the United States, and people seem to flee the United States at the same time. I mean, you are going to Denmark. Larry's going to Sweden, or something of the sort. So it's. Are you trying to avoid me, folks? I mean,
I'm just trying to get a respite before you show up at my house. That's all.
Oh. All right, but we have the final 20 minutes of Dr. DeMarte, and then it's Travis' friends. Really, let's see, subtitles 1.25. Let's go.
Perfect.
And remember to subscribe to Vielhammer Media.
Please be seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel.
Can you pause it real quick?
Dr. DeMarte, the jurors have some questions.
Yes.
It's jury questions.
I haven't seen him. Oh, jury questions. Nice. But where's Vielhammer been?
I'm not sure.
Hey,
now, when you say it, I haven't seen him for a bit.
I know. But anyways, everyone needs to go subscribe to Vielhammer Media. Anyways, because he put together this awesome, wonderful re-edit of the audio and the video of the courtroom, as well as a bunch of other trials.
Yeah.
Questions for you. I'm going to ask these questions in the order in which they were submitted. How many forensic cases have you worked on?
I've been doing forensic cases for several years. If we're talking about cases that are specifically where an attorney has hired me or the court has hired me, I've been doing that since 2010 when I became licensed. I've been doing other forensically related work beginning in 2007.
How many times have you testified based on your evaluations?
While I've done several forensic evaluations, I've only been asked to testify 3 times. This is my 3rd time.
How many cases involved abuse?
This is her 3rd time testifying in court.
I know. That's one of like the many factors, but that's kind of a big one.
Yeah. But I mean,
but you got to have your first somewhere, right?
Yeah, but for her being this new, she's really good at it.
Oh, she was very good, very confident. I think she's just naturally confident, but she did very good on the stand.
Yeah. But the jury does have some questions, which means, okay, are you really this clever and this young?
Well, she looks, yeah. I mean, maybe the jury had the same sense that I had, which was, wow, she looks really young.
Yeah. And why do you think Jodi Arias tries to look like you?
Yeah, that should be the next question.
If this is specific to forensic cases or in general, several of my general evaluations, it's commonly the case that abuse is involved, whether it's child abuse, sexual abuse, or domestic violence. If it's related to forensic cases, I'll need a second to think.
Hypothetically, if a person suffered PTSD because of a bear attack while hiking, would you throw out their PDS test if they lied and said it was a tiger?
Yes, those would be different events. A lot of times what you see with PTSD is that there's different triggering events that remind them of the trauma. So I would expect that a bear and a tiger would look different, smell different, act different, and the subsequent symptoms would be associated with those variables, with those differences among them. So I would say that they were different and that I would.
Would the person be answering the question the same regarding?
So what you say?
I said, that's an interesting question. The whole,
Yeah.
I love the jury questions because you can tell kind of where they're thinking.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I get that she might have fabricated something, but if the event still happened, would you discard the entire, test? It's interesting.
Regardless of whether they call the animal a bear or a tiger.
Can you ask that again?
Would the person be answering the questions on the PDS the same, regardless of whether they call the animal a bear or a tiger?
They would be answering it very different.
Do you believe absolutely that it is possible to remain purely unbiased in an evaluation once compassion creeps in?
I do think it's possible to remain unbiased if you have some compassion. And there are indicators that we have to look within ourselves and barriers that we have to have in front of us to suggest whether we're crossing the line. So crossing the line could be giving something to someone, or maybe even being triggered by our own traumas, our own life experiences that could make us feel biased. So I think it's very possible to have compassion and not be biased, but we have to make sure that we as professionals are really paying attention and watching that line.
What types of people are at risk for developing or having borderline personality disorder?
Unfortunately, anyone's at risk, but what we see is a higher prevalence rate of borderline personality disorder in individuals who have been exposed to trauma and neglect throughout their lifetime. One of the important variables that's often talked about in the literature is this idea of being invalidated by family members and by parents. What invalidation means is if the person says, for example, let's say a child is riding their bike and they fall and they hurt their knee and they're crying because their knee hurts. An example of an invalidation would be a parent saying, your knee doesn't hurt, you're fine. They're invalidating their emotions, they're invalidating their experiences. When we see that happening frequently throughout their childhood, that tends to increase the chances that they'll develop borderline personality disorder.
In the interview Jodi gave, where she stated, "Mark my words, no jury will ever convict me," do you feel that is part of a borderline personality disorder, especially since she is smiling when she said it?
I think that's another example of self-esteem. And it's also an example of that immaturity that I talked about before, making these immature statements.
That's funny.
These immature statements that are often seen in people with borderline personality disorder. I do think that that's consistent.
That was not a good question for Jodi.
So, did you date Jodi?
Oh.
Hey, Fubar.
Hey, folks.
Take care.
Wouldn't taking the camera, rather than leaving it, show more organizational thinking capabilities?
I would say that they're both an example of organization, just different type of organization, with the goal being hide the evidence, take away information associated with the killing.
When asked by defense about efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment, you stated you had other examples for this category that did not involve Travis. Can you share those examples?
Yes, throughout her diary, she used that word exactly, fear of abandonment. Oh, I take that back. Abandonment. I feel abandoned. She made that comment at least a couple times with other boyfriends. There was also indication in those relationships that they had cheated on her and that she continued to stay in that relationship and then subsequently befriend them and become very close to them despite being treated in that kind of way. Those are some of the examples that were found in other relationships.
Do you think deleting pictures from a camera and then washing that camera is an attempt to remove or destroy evidence?
Yes.
That's the impression that it gives, yes.
If you had
Why wasn't that objected to?
I don't know. I would have objected to that.
Yeah, I mean, that she's not the finder of fact, the jury is. So that I would have, yeah. That's strange that they objected to other things, but didn't to this.
Presumably, they would have had an opportunity to argue about that question and say, at the bench before it was actually asked.
Yeah, that's strange.
Maybe they did and they lost. I don't know.
not seen pictures proving that the evidence, photos, was recovered, given your knowledge of cameras, would you have viewed this as an effective attempt to destroy evidence?
Can you ask that again, please?
If you had not seen pictures proving that the evidence, photos, was recovered, given your knowledge of cameras, would you have viewed this as an effective attempt to destroy evidence?
Putting it, yes. My knowledge of cameras is that if you put it in water, that it would be destroyed and that we wouldn't expect the camera to continue to work and that the memory card would be destroyed. But again, my knowledge of cameras is probably that of the average person.
In your opinion, is it normal for a person who is incarcerated to be depressed and have anxiety?
Yes, I've worked with many individuals who are incarcerated. Interestingly, you don't consistently see it in all of them, but certainly it's not something that's outside of the scope of what we would expect to see in someone who has a significant change in environment, living, at home and then all of a sudden being controlled in a jail setting. It's a big difference, and I would expect to see some changes.
Do you consider Jodi stabbing, shooting, and slitting Travis's throat?
Always.
So what to say?
Sorry, Jodi is always winning. That's what I wanted to say. Justin asked who was winning. Jodi always wins.
To be a traumatic event.
That certainly is an event that could be considered traumatic. The variables that would be important to me to know is how she experienced the event.
Overruled. Overruled. You may continue.
PTSD, traumatic events that are associated with PTSD, we look for the person's response to it. Did they experience horror? Did they experience fear associated with the event? If there was this association of being terrified, fear, horror as a result of the event, and there's evidence that there was this horror, fear that continued after the event, then yes, I would consider it as a potential for the development of PTSD.
You said you administered the TSI to Jodi because Dr. Karp had done the same, but you did not re-administer other tests that Dr. Karp or Dr. Samuels had given. Can you explain why?
Yes, the test that I gave 4 different tests. One was, again, just a measure to make sure that she had the right reading requisites for the self-report measure.
Overruled.
The other tests, the WACE and the MMPI, those are tests that are very commonly used in forensic settings, and for good reason. They provide us a lot of really good and important information. So I made the decision to use those tests because I thought it would be very helpful. In terms of why I didn't use the other tests, I felt like the tests that I gave answered the questions that I needed and that it wasn't necessary to administer those other tests. And I made the decision to administer the TSI because I did want to look at continuity across evaluators.
Do you know what the differences are between the TSI-1 versus the TSI-2?
There's slight differences in terms of scale scores. I have not used the TSI-2, so I'm not as familiar as I am with the TSI-1. And there's updated norms
These are
also.
Really good questions.
Regarding the PDS answer sheet, exhibit number 555, do you know whose handwriting is on the PDS answer sheet? Mr. Martinez, do you have exhibit 555?
Thank you.
It shows that the jury is really, really paying attention. They have intelligent, well thought out questions.
Yeah.
And Jodi should know exactly what the jury is thinking.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're buying it, especially when they ask about trying to hide evidence by washing the camera and all this stuff. They're just looking for validation.
Yeah, I mean, they have been staring at the diary for a good few times, and now they want to see, does it match the one on the answering sheet? They want to know if it was the doctor who filled it in himself.
You may.
I don't know if any of the jury had done or has done any interviews, John. I'll have to look into that. I have a suspicion they did, but I think it was the jury for the penalty phase, because this was a death penalty case, that spoke. I don't think the jury from the actual guilt or innocent phase spoke. I'm trying to think back.
I'm going to grab myself something to drink. For some odd reason, I'm quite thirsty today. I'll be right back.
I wonder why. Makes no sense. Hey, Mustang. Gwen. Shani. Everyone needs to go check out Shani with her fundraiser for Fiery Red Podcast later on today. I will be there as well for a little bit. And if you guys don't know Fiery Red Podcast, you need to go check that out. Good morning. Yeah, we didn't go last week. Last week, both Nick and I, generally we do it every Saturday. We've only missed 2 Jodi days ever. And they were last week and like 2 weeks ago. Because we had family events. Yes. Thank you, Gigi. Yes, Fiery Red is, well, I don't want to say dying of cancer. Fiery Red Podcast has been diagnosed with cancer. And this is a fundraiser to help cover some of the medical bills. So if you guys wouldn't mind, there's the Give, Send, Go account there. If you can. If you can't,
Dr. DeMarte, you've been handed 550. Do you know whose handwriting is on that answer sheet?
I would have to make the assumption that this is.
Objection. Sustained. Do you see any issues with Dr. Samuels filling out the answer sheet and possibly summarizing the written answers on section 2?
Of this.
Maybe Shani, I just don't want to say.
This is often given to the person to fill out themselves. The only time that can happen is if it's someone who doesn't have the mobility to be able to do it themselves or isn't able to see properly, or there's some sort of impairment there that would prevent them from doing it. So I do see it problematic that if Ms. Arias didn't fill this out, that she didn't, that just isn't in line with how it's typically administered and could potentially be suggestive of something else.
Does it cause any concern?
I mean, even if Jodi is saying the answers, writing it down, there will always be some slight difference.
Yeah, and I have to imagine, now I'm not a Jung or anything, but I have to imagine that if they want the patient or the subject of the test to write it down personally, there's got to be a reason for that. And you probably shouldn't remove that from the equation, right? I'm so prettier than her.
Jodi.
Welcome, Jodi Arias.
Welcome, Jodi Arias, to the chat.
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
For you regarding the validity of the test that the written answers appear to be answered by someone who is familiar with psychological verbiage and not in layman's verbiage?
Yes, that would be very concerning.
Follow up, Mr. Martinez.
I think you indicated previously something about needing a minute to think about when you were being asked about your experience. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And have you had a moment to think about the question?
Yes. And I believe the question was related to how many forensic evaluations. I'm going to have to give a general estimate. Again, I don't keep count of it. I'd say it's probably somewhere, if I'm using forensic evaluations as a general term, working with individuals who have been adjudicated or in the adjudication process, probably no more than 75, somewhere around there.
No other questions?
Come on.
You were asked a question about talking about her feelings of abandonment, and one of the reasons that you thought that she fulfills that criteria was because she stayed in a relationship where the man was cheating on her. That she would continue to stay, right?
Yes.
And continuing to stay in a relationship where a man is cheating on you, that's also a sign of low self-esteem, isn't it?
It could potentially.
And you were asked the question about whether or not it's normal to see anxiety and depression in somebody who's on a TSI trauma symptom inventory when the person's in custody. You remember that question? Is it normal to see anxiety and depression?
I don't know that it was specific to the TSI. Was that the way it was posed? I think it was just, the question was anxiety and depression.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Okay.
Is it normal? So you answered that it's normal to see anxiety and depression in somebody who is in custody, right?
I said that I've seen it in some people and not in all, but it wouldn't be uncommon.
Okay. And the trauma symptom inventory test that you gave to Miss Arias, you gave her 2, right?
Yes.
And one of the ones that you gave her, you were interested in her answering those questions as how they related from her feelings between January 2007 to January 2008, right?
Yes,
So she was not in custody during that time, right?
that's correct.
In fact, that was the time that she was involved with Mr. Alexander.
Yes,
And on that trauma inventory test, that one also showed anxiety, high anxiety levels, right?
high anxiety, yes.
High depression levels.
Yes.
Okay. And you asked the question about the differences between the TSI-1 and the TSI-2, right?
Yes,
And you answered that you have not even used the TSI-2, is that right?
that's correct.
And the TSI-2, that's been out and available for at least 3 years now, right?
I'm not sure.
I'm sorry,
the
2
exact-
years.
I'm not sure the exact time.
Well, you gave the TSI-1 to Miss Arias, right?
Yes.
And you did that in 2011?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
So you gave it to her in 2011, but you were aware that the TSI-2 was available at that time, right?
I wasn't aware at that time.
I thought you knew that you just didn't have it because the people you worked for didn't purchase it yet.
I learned about that afterwards. They were the ones that were in charge of purchasing the tests at that time. I didn't know that a new one had just been released. I had afterwards found out that one had just been released.
Okay, so now you're telling me that you did know that a new one had been released in 2011.
I don't know the date of when it was released. I knew it was released.
In 2011.
I just said I don't know the date that it was released.
I thought you just said that you found out later from it that the owners of Bayless just chose not to buy the TSI-2 at the time that you gave it to Miss Arias, and that's why you didn't have it.
I'd like to clarify.
Isn't that what you just said?
I'd like to clarify.
Did you not say that?
I'm getting a little confused by the verbiage that the way you're phrasing your questions.
Okay, all right. When you gave the TSI-1 to Miss Arias, right?
Yes.
Okay, that was in 2011, correct?
Yes.
And when you gave that to her, you told us before that you did not use the TSI-2, right?
Right.
Okay, and you told us that you did not use the TSI-2 because your employer at the time did not get it yet. Is that correct?
That they did not buy it. Yes.
Yes, okay. So that would stand to reason then that the TSI-2 was available in 2011.
I believe it was.
Okay, and so what you're telling us then today also then is that since 2011, you haven't given the TSI-2 ever, right?
No, I have. Well,
Given the TSI-2?
Yes. No, I'm sorry. The TSI-1.
Okay, all right,
Yes,
so you've never used the TSI-2?
That is correct.
Okay. So you've never used the updated test then?
I have not used the updated test.
Have you given the TSI-1 since 2011?
Not recently, but yes, in 2011.
Just in
She's being
2011?
interrogated, but not about anything
I
important.
used it while I was at Bayless still, so I left there in August of 2012 and would use it.
Okay, so you haven't used it since 2012 then?
Yes, correct.
Why are they asking? This is a strange series of questions, but
And
if
it's
they want to
weird
focus,
because it's not really,
it's not really relevant.
sorry, and it's not really on point with the jury questions either. So, it's just all kinds of weird all
Yeah.
around. I'm not, but she's like arguing about stuff that's not really like if she administered the complete wrong test, if she administered a test that was out of circulation for several years,
Yeah.
if she did something like that, okay, I can get it. But this is a test like it's being administered while another test is being developed and maybe has been published. It's not like it's that out of date or anything. And I don't know. That's my thought. It's just not enough is there. It's not relevant enough to spend this much time on.
And you were asked a question about handwriting on,
I have
oh,
it.
you have it? Yes, right?
Yes.
Okay. And if at the time the PDS test is given, the person does not have the actual test booklet with them, answers can be written down on an extra sheet of paper, can't they?
I wouldn't choose to do that.
But it can happen, right?
Anybody can choose to do that.
Okay, showing you Exhibit 534.
Take care, Gigi.
You see at the top, here it says the name Jodi Arias, right?
I do.
See you. Thank you for being here.
And then check marks, right?
Yes.
And then for question 13, you see it says item 12, right?
Yes.
And the writing is repeated emotional / psychological abuse, right?
Yes.
And if this information is taken and copied exactly onto the PDS booklet, that wouldn't be a problem then, right? As long as it's the same information that's copied.
If it was copied accurately.
Okay. And can you see the difference in handwriting between where we see repeated emotional and psychological abuse and, let's say, circle numbers that apply? Can you see the difference in handwriting there?
Yes, but I'm not a handwriting expert.
I know, just in your opinion.
Overruled.
You said yes, but you're not an expert?
And the question is, do I see differences? In
Yeah, do you see a
handwriting?
difference in handwriting where it says item 12, repeated emotional and psychological abuse, and then just a line down where it says circle numbers that apply?
I could say it looks a little different.
Just a
Yes.
little, okay.
I don't know what she's implying there. Jodi wrote part of it, but not all of it.
I have
I'm
no
not,
idea.
thank you.
Any other questions from the jury? All right,
Let's
ladies
get
and
on to
gentlemen,
Travis and Fred.
have any of you seen anything about this case in the media? Have you read anything?
All right. That was the end of DeMarte. I think she did really good on the stand.
Yes. Yes, I think she did excellent. Especially for how young she is. Even the jury picked up on that.
Yeah.
But we have Jodi's friends now coming up.
We have Jodi's friends, starting with, I believe, Amanda Webb.
You know what's interesting, Mustang, is that at least in Michigan, you don't have to be qualified as a handwriting expert to testify that you recognize somebody's handwriting. Like in theory, one of my legal assistants that sees my signature constantly for like 10 years could testify and say, yeah, that looks like Dave's signature. You don't need to be an expert in that, which is interesting.
Yeah, but handwriting expertise has been, it's so subjective, but technology has improved so they can actually, instead of actually just looking at the signature, they look at the ink, they look at the paper, just to make sure, okay, this is the ink that was used. For instance, here's a document with the George Washington signature. They can take that paper, take that ink and say, no, this ink wasn't around back then, and stuff like that. So it's more forensic work than just looking at the signature.
Is this one of his bowling friends? Well, we don't know if this is the third that engaged in the Provo push or not. We'll find out.
We will find out. And ta-da! We are now at day 51.
Does it look like I'm rocking
Please
a
be
lot?
seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. Mr. Martinez, you may call the next rebuttal witness.
The state calls Jacob Never.
Uh-huh.
Please come forward right up here to be sworn.
No, Travis is the one who died, Brandon.
Can you spell your last name for me?
That's not Amanda Webb. Okay.
Raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Please walk around and have a seat.
Yeah. Yes, you are, Jodi. And you're
Your name,
getting
sir?
wealthy
Jacob
out
Mefford.
of prison.
Drawing your attention back to the year 2000, where were you working?
Prepaid legal services,
When did you begin working with prepaid legal services?
April 22nd.
Are you really working at prepaid services, legal thingy? It's a
Well, he might,
pyramid.
because it is an organization. It's like an insurance organization. So he might actually be employed by Prepaid Legal. He might not be one of their, like Jodi selling this stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
In 2000.
And as part of working there at Prepaid Legal, did you have occasion to meet an individual by the name of Travis Alexander?
Yes.
And how is it that you met him? Were you guys upline? Were you next? How is it that you met him, and whether or not you became friends with him?
Met him through the business. We were sidelined, so no financial interest up or down. Just met through the business.
And
Okay,
in
so
terms
he
of the
was
meetings that we're talking about, would you see
one of
him
the
at these
salesmen,
meetings
like Jodi.
that were held on a semi-annual basis and perhaps other meetings? Is that when you would see him?
Yes.
Were you closer friends than that?
Yes.
And how close of friends were you and he?
Very close.
Would you socialize when you weren't working or not?
Yes.
Were you the
And
push
sir,
in the Provo push?
throughout this time, did there come a time when you met somebody by the name of Jodi Arias?
Yes.
Is she in court today?
Yes.
Tell me where she is seated and what she is wearing.
Sitting right there, wearing a blue shirt, glasses.
Your Honor, may the record reflect the identification of the defendant?
Yes.
And
Oh, Jodi put her glasses back on.
For the friend, she didn't want him to get any sort of unnatural feelings towards her.
Yeah, but she took them
maybe
off.
she likes-
She took them off during DeMarte's testimony because she didn't wear glasses. Now there's another one up there, glasses on. Yeah.
I hate when he mispronounces my name.
you met her, was it part of a PPL function that you met her?
Yes.
And where was this function being held?
First time I met her was in San Bernardino, California at a Hilton Hotel.
And what kind of function was it?
It was a prepaid legal training.
And when you say prepaid legal training, what are you talking about?
It is a weekly event where we would all come together as distributors to learn how to do the business.
Is that the same thing as the events that we've been talking about that are held on a semi-annual basis, or is that something different?
It's different.
And the events that are, I guess, nationwide, how often are those for PPL?
2 from corporate, 1 from your individual organization.
When you say there's 2 from corporate and 1 from the individual organization, the 2 from corporate, when are they?
Normally one in the spring and normally one in the fall.
1 in the spring and 1 what?
In the fall.
All right, and in the spring, do you have any idea when you say the spring, when that would be?
Yep. Normally March.
So there would be 1 in March,
Mhm.
and in the fall, when would that be?
Approximately like September-ish.
And then you also talked about a third meeting, if you will, that's open to everybody. When was that?
Most of the time they were in June or July.
And what's the difference between the one in June and July and the other 2?
Just who they're hosted by. The one in June and July is hosted by the individual distributors. The ones in the spring and the fall are hosted by actual corporate.
Did you have
Is
occasion
any of this
to
going
attend
to come
the
back to
March
being relevant?
2007 corporate meeting?
Yes.
And where was that?
It was in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
And while you were there, did you have occasion to observe the interaction between the defendant and Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
And were they affectionate with each other, yes or no?
Yes.
Did you see that on more than one occasion or not?
Yes.
How often would you see that they were affectionate during that?
Just about every time that they were together.
And during that time, did you also have occasion to videotape their interaction together back in March of 2007 at this Oklahoma City meeting?
Yes.
I'm going to show you exhibit number 632. Prior to coming to court, did you take a look at this?
Yes.
Oh,
The
this is on the
interaction-
couch. This is when they're on the couch, right? This is when they're like all in the coffee shop and they're hanging out. I think that's what this is.
And Mr. Alexander back in March of 2007.
Yes.
I move the admission of exhibit 632.
Okay.
We might want to put it at normal speed when they play the video. I'm assuming they're going to play the video. I don't know if handwriting is considered junk science. just
632
yet.
is admitted.
Sir, who is this individual to the upper left-hand corner that seems to be doing most of the talking?
Travis Alexander.
And there appears to be something blondish or white on his lap. Who is that?
Jodi Arias.
And this individual here to the right, do you see who that is?
Right next to Jodi,
Right. Mhm.
Dan Freeman,
And to his left, the individual in the white shirt.
Christopher Hughes,
And the person that is sitting there with the black shirt, who is that?
Charlie Ethington.
Do you know about what time this video was shot?
Somewhere between probably 11 p.m. and midnight.
And this is after the meeting?
It is
Yes.
huge. It's the biggest freaking courtroom I've ever seen.
Now you're crying, Jodi? Now you're crying?
Well, she sees Travis back when they were all lovey-dovey. I mean, she's making a face like she's crying. I don't know if she's actually crying. Back to happier times.
At some point in this video, what does the defendant do? Do you know whether or not she keeps her head down there or not?
No, eventually she looks like she gets bored and she lifts his arm off of her and sits up.
And how long is this video approximately?
5 minutes.
And after this video was shot, what happened? Did the people go about their separate ways or not?
Yeah.
And in terms of the defendant and Ms. Arias, did they leave together or did they leave separately?
I'm not completely sure.
Now, did you also have occasion to be with them or continue knowing the two of them after March of 2007?
Yes.
And did you specifically have occasion to be with the both of them in June of 2007?
Yes.
What was the occasion for that?
It was an incentive trip hosted by Prepaid Legal for top leaders, and we were in Huntington Beach, California.
And do you know whether or not Mr. Alexander was there?
Yes, he was.
And was the defendant there also?
Yes, she was.
And did you have occasion to have some interaction with them during this particular event?
Yes.
How is it that they were between the two of them during this particular event? Were they distant? Were they together? How were they?
Affectionate, like a couple.
I'm going to show you Exhibit 633. Let's see if you're familiar with this.
Careful.
I mean, the first camera phones weren't that good, but the switch was almost immediate from when they actually started to camera phones. When
Yeah,
cameras,
but everyone always had those little cameras out too, or you had like those little handheld cameras. I had them. I always had them. And I would always be filming random stuff too. So I was one of those guys. I was always filming stuff.
I never had one. I wasn't really
Well,
interested.
I had like this little digital camera
that
would also take short videos. Like you could take like 3-minute videos or something.
My old camera probably had that function too, which I never used because I didn't know it existed. My dad, he had this the VHS handheld camera. That was a monster.
My dad had the Betamax one that had the unit on your shoulder, but then you had the shoulder sling bag with the recorder hanging here off to the side.
Oh.
Water there.
Hey, Dizzy.
Do you recognize it?
Yes.
What is it?
It's a photo of Jodi and Travis.
And where was the photo taken?
It was taken right outside of their room.
What room?
Their room at the Hyatt Hotel and Resort in Huntington Beach.
Okay. And the date was June of 2007?
Yes.
Move for the admission of Exhibit 633.
No objection.
33 is admitted.
Let's take a look at Exhibit 633. And She's wearing what? What is this?
That's a robe from the Hyatt.
Is that where you were staying?
Yes,
And who is this individual here?
Travis Alexander.
About what time of the day was this taken?
Approximately 9, 10 o'clock at night.
And was this after any activities involving PPL or not?
Yes,
And the activities ended about what time?
about the time when the sun goes down. So whatever time that was in June, so probably around, I'd say 8 o'clock-ish, something like that.
And after this photograph was taken, were there any days left in this vacation that was involved?
Yes,
And did they continue to be affectionate towards each other such that you could see or the public could see?
yes.
I don't have any other questions.
Cross-examination.
Morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, from what you said just moments ago, you were a good friend of Travis's for a number of years, correct?
Yes,
And in that regard, then, would I be correct in assuming that you knew he was of the Mormon faith?
yes,
Okay. And you said that you saw Travis and Jodi as a couple for the first time in January of 2007, correct?
I didn't say that.
Okay, you said you met her for the first time in 2007, right?
I didn't say that either.
At the lobby of the San Bernardino Hilton?
I didn't give a date, but that's when I met her, yeah.
Okay.
That's
When was
where I
it?
met her.
When was that then?
Approximately fall of 2006, I believe, somewhere around there.
Fall of 2006. And then the next time you see them together is in March of 2007, correct?
No.
Okay, when's the next time you see them together?
I retract that. You're right. March 2007 was the last time I saw them after the first time that I met Jodi, when I saw Jodi and Travis together. You're right, in the fall of 2006. So the next time that I saw them would be March of 2007.
Okay, so the San Bernardino Hilton was fall of 2006. Next time was March of 2007, this convention of we just saw the video of, right?
Yes.
Okay. And
Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome. I just thought I'd give some membership. I was looking at your chat, and not everyone was green, so that's what I was trying to.
Ah, good. Yeah. Thank you so much. And it went to Keely Burke, Shade of the Night, meow, Melissa Lovejoy, and Phoenix. Hey, nice. You now have access to all my members-only content. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Dave. That puts me in the lead.
Yeah, 3.5 floppy. Well, you were already in the lead. But 3.5 floppies, I remember those in cameras. They were.
You shoved.
It was fine if
for
you wanted to
it was
print the
shoved in
image,
from
like-
behind.
I forgot how graphic those pictures were too of Jodi. Until I was like really paying attention to the opening, our opening intro.
Phrasing.
When I was really paying attention to Jodi's opening.
Yeah.
All right.
and then the next time would have been Huntington Beach in June of 2007, this exhibit 633, when that was taken, correct?
That I can recall, yes.
Okay. And was that the last time?
The last time that I saw them together?
Yes, as
No.
a couple? Okay. And when was the last time you saw them together as a couple?
I can't quite recall. It would have been sometime later in 2007. I don't have a specific date, but sometime later in 2007.
Okay. You say that you saw them being affectionate towards each other. We saw the video, we saw the picture. This happened in March of 2007 and June of 2007, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you had also said to me when we spoke the other day that you knew there was a time when the relationship went underground, I think was your words, correct?
Sure.
Okay. And did you have any knowledge of the fact that Travis and Jodi were having a sexual relationship in 2008?
No.
Thank you, sir.
Redirect.
In terms of the sexual relationship, did you and Mr. Alexander have a relationship such that you would kiss and tell?
No,
Would you have the relationship with him that whatever sexual exploits you were involved in, that you would share those with him?
no,
Was that the type of relationship that the two of you had?
no.
You talked about seeing them together after this June 2007 photograph, which is this one. Where did you see them together?
At other prepaid legal functions.
And with regard to the prepaid legal functions that you saw them, were they speaking with each other? Would they talk to each other?
Yes,
And were they around each other?
yes,
Did they show any affection during those times?
yes.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Any questions from the jury for this witness? You may step down. The state may call its next witness.
State calls Amanda Webb.
So, okay, so we now know they were affectionate. Okay.
Sorry, I got lost in my Discord for a minute after Hospice Jen's comment. No jury questions for this witness?
Nope.
Nobody cared about him?
They
didn't care
were
about him
affectionate
either.
towards each other.
Please come
and
forward,
we got the
right up
video
here to be sworn.
and a photo into evidence.
I don't know how that really rehabilitates the case.
Raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I've seen a few.
Yes, it
trials-
was multi-level marketing. Sorry.
Yeah. I've seen a few trials where the person doing the oath thing is the prosecutor. I think that is completely unnecessary. I saw it in the Dykes case. They did that. And I don't understand why. I think this is proper. The court clerk or a court guard or something like that, the bailiff, yeah, that's proper. The prosecutor, definitely not.
I've only seen it in one time, and maybe it was, I can't remember what case it was, where the prosecutor swore him in. That just seems really bad.
Yeah. Hey, Christina.
Especially for defense witnesses, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Please walk right around here and have a seat.
May I have your name, please?
My name is Amanda Webb.
And who do you work for?
I work for Walmart.
And which Walmart do you work for?
I work for the
is this where she
store
bought
in
the
Salinas,
deli and the
2458
C-rings?
from North Main Street.
What do you say, Dave?
Remember Jodi went to Walmart to buy C-rings and other Smexy Time toys? Is that what this is about?
Oh.
And how long have you worked at the Salinas store at the Walmart?
I worked at the Salinas store for about 5 months now. I've worked for Walmart for 5 years.
And what are your present duties, or what is it that you do for Walmart? And if you don't mind pulling the microphone just a little bit, or you can move up. There you go.
I am an asset protection manager. I investigate internal theft. I investigate reports. I help the police officers investigate like credit card theft, and I do a lot of that stuff.
As part of your duties, are you familiar how the registers work there at Walmart?
Yes, I am.
And are you also familiar with the procedure or the process involved in a return of merchandise from Walmart?
Yes.
Does it make a
Oh, this
difference
is a
when
yes.
somebody is returning something, whether or not they have a receipt?
There is a different process for each way, but yes, there's a certain way we do that.
With regard to somebody who has a receipt, what is the process that the Salinas store undertakes if somebody wants to return an item? What, generally speaking, what's the process?
From the beginning, so the customer comes in with their receipt and their item. The cashier will take the receipt and scan the barcode at the very bottom of the receipt. And then at that point, they'll match up what they call a SKU number or a UPC number from the item.
Let me slow you down a little bit by looking at, for example, 237.008. Do you recognize this as a Walmart receipt?
I do.
And is this a receipt that was issued by the store that you're currently working at?
It is, yes.
How do you know that?
Right at the top where it says ST number and it says 2458, that is my store number.
Okay, so you were telling us now about somebody who comes in with a receipt. Generally speaking, what is the first thing that happens? Do they go to any register or do they go to a certain register? How does that work?
You generally go to customer service. You don't have to, but that's where they direct all the returns. If it's a long line, sometimes they will take you at other registers, but they do direct you to the customer service.
Let's assume, just for the sake of this particular inquiry, that they do go to customer service and there's somebody there. What is the first thing that's done? That the person presents a receipt, they present an item, and just take us through the process.
So what they'll do again is they'll scan the barcode at the very bottom right under this
All right,
TC
let me,
number. So they scan that barcode right there and it brings up the transaction in our
all
register.
right, so when you say that they scan the barcode and it brings up the transaction, what does it bring up? What is it that the person who is going to now initiate this refund, what is it that they're going to be looking at now?
It actually doesn't pull up anything on their screen particularly.
Okay.
It just pulls up that transaction. So whatever's being returned gets linked back to that transaction.
So in other words, their computer knows that they purchased whatever was sold under this barcode.
Yes.
Is this an internal kind of barcode that Walmart uses, or is this something that is identified to the particular products that are sold?
No, that's just the barcode for the transaction itself. It's to link that transaction to these items.
And for example, does this include the date and time that this transaction was made?
Yes.
So that they pull this up, and then what happens?
Then they'll match the SKU number from the item to the SKU number that's on the receipt. So
You
that
said you used the word SKU. Is that SKU?
it's SKEW.
SKEW. And what is it that number is? If we're looking at this, for example.
It's a universal code for all items. So say it's a non-Walmart brand, say it's a particular brand, that SKU number may be the same SKU number in another store. It just links that item to the number that's being scanned. So you know the price.
So as I understand it, the SKU number that you're talking about comes with the item that's being returned, right?
Yes.
So far, what we've talked about is this at the bottom has to do with Walmart and the receipt and the purchase, correct?
Yes.
The SKU number has to do with the item that's actually being brought to the counter for the refund, right?
Yes.
And if we look down here, for example, this 5G, which is, let's assume 5 gallon, there's a bunch of numbers here. Is that the SKU number that we're talking about?
That is the SKU number, yes.
And every item that is sold by Walmart, does it include an the SKU number?
Yes.
So what happens then? The person comes in with a receipt, they have this item, they have the SKU that has a SKU number on it. What happens then? How do you ensure, for example, that it actually was purchased at Walmart?
SKU spelled with a
Just
Q.
based on the receipt, you take the customer's word for it.
And then you have this receipt, correct? That
Yes.
tells you. So for example, if they were bringing back a 5 gallon can and this number wasn't on there, then it wasn't sold at Walmart, then, right?
Yes.
So then what happens?
Once they match those up, they'll have some sort of documentation on that paper on the receipt, the original receipt that the customer actually retains after. Generally,
Okay, so I guess now is when he proves through this witness that the can was never returned.
Yeah, this is all gas can stuff.
Mm.
And it's I always thought SKU was spelled with a QU.
I have no idea of either.
where they cross out the item that they have been returning or circle it, and they always put like an initial next to that.
So let me stop you there. So for example, if we were talking about this one right here at the bottom, the individual would either cross it out or circle it as part of the process there, correct?
Yes. That's
And then
some
they-
sort of documentation.
And they would initial it, right?
Yes.
So for example, in looking at this exhibit that we're talking about, exhibit 237.008, based on this particular process that you're talking about, since nothing's crossed out, circled, or there's no initials, was anything refunded involving this?
I would say no.
All right.
There is human error, but I would say no.
So then what happens?
At that point, they will process it through the computer system, and the customer will get their money. They have to sign another sheet of paper with their signature on it, and they'll get their original receipt back with the documentation that item's been returned. And we do that so that they can't go with the same item to another store and return it again.
So with regard to the computer record that may be generated as part of the return, you said, well, there's I guess the computer notation somewhere that this item actually was refunded?
There's not anything in the computer. I mean, we keep track of every single transaction, so it's in the computer system that way.
Uh-huh.
It goes back into our on hands, but there's not a computer that specifically says, this item has been returned.
How about at the register? Is there an indication that that item was returned at the register pursuant to what went on?
Yes.
And so that's the place to look if we're going to take a look for
Yes.
whether or not a refund was made, right? How many cash registers are there or were there back on June 3rd of 2008 at Walmart?
There was, I believe, 25 on the front end. Then there's a few outlying registers, such as sporting goods, electronics. So I'd say probably 27, 28, maybe 30.
And this receipt that we're talking about involves a transaction on June 3rd of 2008, correct?
Yes.
And on June 3rd of 2008, were you able to go back and determine how many cash registers were open at Walmart on that particular date?
Yes.
And was this that you checked done for a
I want to know what
24-hour
else she
period?
bought.
Yes.
And did you check?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. What else did she buy? I mean, lube?
It was $45. Can we go back to that receipt? I don't know why. I just want to see what else she bought. It might be tedious to others, but okay. So fact cleanser, something cleanser. Is it
350?
Is it for Lady Pit?
397.
She bought 2 of those.
Face cleanser, no?
Oh, face. Oh, that's disappointing. Okay. 2 face cleansers.
I wonder if through those numbers we can find out what it is. Because you bought 2 over this also.
Yeah. And then I don't know what that last one is, but I'm assuming it's
blah 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 cans.
Yeah, okay. So that's probably the Petro can.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting. Okay, I was just curious.
How many cash registers were open at Walmart on that particular date?
Yes.
And was this that you checked done for a 24-hour period?
Yes.
And did you check each and every single cash register, including the ones that don't normally give refunds, to see what refunds were given on that particular date?
Yes.
And those records, are they included in exhibit number exhibit number 634?
Yeah. Those are all the transactions that I printed out that day for that time frame.
And these are the transactions for each and every register that was operating on June 3rd of 2008 on that particular date.
Yes.
Does that include the registers that were not, this is not, design may not be the word, but that were designated to refund?
Yes.
You indicated that sometimes that does happen, right?
It does. And there's certain items such as jewelry that you would have to return in the jewelry department. So there are returns sometimes on other registers.
And these records represent each and every one of those cash registers, if you will, on June 3rd, 2008, involving these transactions as to whether or not there was a refund, right?
Yes.
The refund, if there is one, is there a record made at the time that the refund is generated?
Yes. Anytime an item is refunded, we keep that record in what they call an electronic journal. So the register sends it to this electronic journal. And so anytime anything's purchased, returned, refunded, it's always kept in the system.
And are these records kept in a normal course of business?
Yes.
And the information that's being kept, is that being generated at the time that the refund is going through?
Yes.
And these are the records that you actually pulled up for June 3rd of 2008, correct?
Yes.
And you're familiar with the system and how it works, correct?
Yes. I work with that a lot.
Move for the admission of Exhibit 634.
You may.
All right. That's a lot of testimony for a receipt.
I mean, we know why this is important because her whole story that,
Yeah, but why?
that she, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
This is her planning. She did. It's the plan that she bought it in order to not to try to get away with it, which she might have if she hadn't called the police herself.
Yeah, exactly.
Now they would have found the pictures, but it would have been much harder for them to prove these pictures were from that specific moment. I mean, she two big mistakes.
634 is admitted.
She made 2 big mistakes. 1, the camera. 2, calling the cops. And
yeah, if she had done neither one of those, I don't think. Well,
they probably would
might
have
have had
found
enough for a conviction, but it would have been a lot harder.
Yeah. it would have been a completely different story. And even it would probably be a little bit harder to convict her if she sticked with Ninja's did it story.
Oh yeah, her changing her story was the worst thing she could have done.
Yeah.
Let's talk about these records. For example, as we look at these, I want to have you focus on the number that's right here on the upper right-hand corner. Do you see that?
Yeah, 3?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that a terminal number?
That's the register number.
And then if we look at it here, it talks about reading. What does that mean?
That's the total sales they had through that register.
So if that register, for example, on that date of June 3rd of 2008, generated sales in the amount of $3,233.34, right?
Yes.
It then talks about line voids. What are those?
That would be items that have been voided through the transaction.
At that register?
Yes, at that particular register. This all pertains to that one register.
And so as to register number 3, it also has returns on it, right?
Yes.
It has zeros on it. What does that mean?
That means nothing was returned on that register that day.
So for example, if we're talking about exhibit number 237.008, and we're talking about this 5-gallon item right here, that was not returned on June 3rd of 2008 at that register.
Correct.
And no refund was made, at least at that register, right?
Yes.
And then it talks about discount. What is that about?
That would be associate discount. So through Walmart, we have our own discounts that we do get, and that would show up in there as a discount.
And the daily sales, why do we have that? And then we also have the reading. What is the difference there?
The difference is the money that's actually in the register and the money that they're making. So there's a difference in that.
And then we talked about the net refund items. What does that mean?
That's the items that have been returned. So there was 0 items. That's what that refers to. There was 0 items returned on that register.
So in this case, with regard to register number 3, was this 5-gallon gas can, and see in exhibit number 237.008, was that returned at this terminal number 3?
No.
How about this one, number 4 at the top? Were there any returns there?
There was not.
So again, the question 237.008,
So if you read his book,
which is this Walmart receipt.
if you read his book, I can't remember the name of it, which I did read it. He was all about this gas can thing.
Yeah.
He wanted to prove that she planned this and that she bought these gas cans and borrowed others and filled up so that she wouldn't have any credit card transactions or receipts anywhere in Arizona.
Yeah.
And that was his attack on her. It was the self-defense. I didn't intend to do it sort of thing. He's like, no. You intended and you pre-planned this. And so he's all about this gas can because he did all the math and he was getting super excited and didn't tell anybody. It was the whole thing.
Was this 5-gallon item returned there?
Nothing was returned on that register, no.
How about register number 5? Was anything returned there?
No, there was nothing returned on that.
So again, the question is, was this item that's at the bottom of this receipt, 237.008, was that returned at that register?
No.
How about register number 7? Did that have any returns that day?
There was no returns on that register that day, no.
How about register number 8? Any returns?
No, there was no returns.
And this is all for June 3rd of 2008, correct?
Yes.
That's because she returned it at a different store.
No returns.
Number
on that
9,
register.
any returns on that register?
No.
When Jodi said that she
Number
returned
10,
it,
any returns on that register?
No.
did she really think they wouldn't have records?
Now we go to number 13. How come we don't have 11 and 12? What's going on?
11 and 12 were operating that day, so nobody jumped onto that register and operated it, so there's no journal of that.
And so on number 13, were there any returns?
No.
14, that register, did that have any returns that day?
No.
I mean, a full day at Walmart with no return.
Then we skip all the way to 43, terminal number 43. Were any of the
Okay.
other registers between,
I've been to. They have a separate customer service area that
Yeah.
runs all the returns. You can't just walk up to any register and do a return.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't produce like a customer service register, then I would be all over that particular point for cross-examination.
Yeah.
And it is a very lucrative Walmart, I guess.
Yeah.
We looked at number 14 and number 43, working or operational back on June 3rd of 2008.
No, there would be a journal for that. When I look through the journal itself, it just shows me the registers that were operating. So if that register was not operating that day, it won't show it to me at all.
And if it's not operating, would it generate a return at all?
No.
How about terminal 44? Did that have any returns?
No.
Terminal 46, any returns?
No.
Terminal 45, did that have any returns?
No.
Terminal 52, did that have some returns?
It did.
And how much was the return on that one?
It was for $9.93.
And if we take a look at exhibit 237.008, do you see the amount that is the one at the bottom is how much it is?
$12.96, yes.
So since the price is $12.96, does that mean that that item that we are looking at here is not the item that's represented at register number 52?
That's correct.
Because the prices don't match, correct?
Yes.
But did you also check at this register to see whether or not this item, this 5-gallon item, was returned?
Yes.
And had it been returned?
No.
Then if we look at the second page that's attached to this particular 52, we have some more records. What do these indicate that we haven't seen before?
That's the actual transaction that was returned or refunded. So as you can see, the shirt tie, that there's a SKU number on there next to it, and then it says $9.93 with the minus right after that. That was returned, and then they exchanged it for the shirt below it for the same price.
So what we're talking about with regard to register number 52, there was a return or a refund, correct?
Yes.
And then the second page that's attached to it shows us what the item was and the amount, correct?
Yes.
Register 59, did that have any refunds?
It did.
And how much money was involved?
$223.05.
And attached to it is there an itemization of all of the items that were refunded?
Yeah, every refund transaction for that register, I printed out and attached each of the.
And so in this case, there's 1, 2. This is a layaway cancel, correct?
Yes, so that the money that they had put down was refunded to that customer.
3, 4, 5, and 6 items, right?
Yes, and as you can see, the TC number, that's what relates back to that original receipt with the barcode at the bottom.
You indicated something about the what number?
The TC number right here, right under receipt number 1, that is relating to that barcode at the very bottom, and that's how you could connect that receipt to that actual transaction, that return itself.
So what you're talking about is the TC number that we see here, if this were the receipt, would be at the bottom down here, correct?
Yes.
And then we see TC number there, right?
Yes.
Did you check the TC numbers throughout the store for June 3rd of 2008 to determine whether or not this receipt had ever been brought back for a refund or any other activity?
I didn't check the TC number, no. I checked the specific item, and then I went through each register and checked that registers for that item.
All right. Then register 65, any returns?
No returns on that day.
Register 67, any returns there?
No.
Register 70, any returns?
No.
And register 73, did that have any returns?
It did.
And how much was the amount?
$3.20.
And line voids, that's something different, right?
Yes.
And so if we look at this one, we know that the $3.20 involves something called bounty nap or something like that, correct?
Yes.
That would be napkins, wouldn't it? Or do you know?
I believe, yes, that would be paper towels.
And register 76, any returns on that one?
No.
Register 77, any returns on that one?
No.
And register 79, any returns there?
There was for
And-
$73.88.
Then if we take a look at the accompanying documentation, we have what actually was returned, right?
Yes.
It appears to be a prescription, right?
Yes.
Then we have a very large packet at Terminal 92. Can you tell us why it would be that Terminal 92 has so much or so many returns, whereas the other ones that we've been looking at do not have that?
That's actually a customer service register. So that's where all returns are normally done.
And the amount of returns was how much at that register that day?
$4,441.55.
And each and every one of those items that was returned is listed or attached to this particular packet involving terminal number 92,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
And in any of those, you've reviewed those, right?
I did. Took me a
Did
very
any
long
of those
time.
include this item that we've been talking about here, this 5-gallon item that's down here at the bottom?
It did not.
And Terminal 93, it's also a lot of documents there, correct?
Yes, it's also another customer service register.
And this indicates the returns and the amount, correct?
Yes,
And it also includes a listing of every
Customer
single item that was
service
returned,
register.
correct?
it does, yes.
Sorry?
This is the customer service register. This is what I was thinking.
Mhm.
Like they have, most of the returns would go through customer service.
Yeah.
And you were the person who actually checked this, correct?
I did. It took me a very long time to go through everything.
And in this particular terminal or register 93, was this 5-gallon item ever refunded?
No,
The last register that you checked was 95, correct?
yes,
It did have a return on there, right?
it did, yes.
And the amount was how much?
$63.53.
And if we take a look at the attachment to it, what are we looking at there?
It's a battery return and a battery core return. It was a car battery.
So after your review of all of the registers, after your review of whatever computer's work may have been done there, and after a review of Exhibit 237.008, was this 5-gallon can, that we now know as a can, of gas, was it ever returned for a refund on June 3rd of 2008?
It was not, and I actually researched that SKU number specifically for about a week. It hadn't been returned or purchased until about a week later.
So in other words, after looking at this, you researched it further to find if there had been another purchase involving this particular gas can, correct?
Yes,
And when was the next time that you found that there actually had been a purchase?
it was about a week and a half after the time frame.
And even during that week and a half from June 3rd to when you found this item being purchased, did you ever find any indication whatsoever in the records that this item had ever been refunded ever at the Salinas store?
Not in the time frame I searched it, no, it had not been refunded.
I don't have any other questions.
Cross-examination?
No questions, Your Honor.
Any questions from the jury? It looks like we do have one.
I love jury questions.
Any other questions? Counsel, please.
This is a gigantic courtroom. She had to walk
Yeah.
a mile to the jury to go get the jury questions. Hey, Wendy, welcome.
Hey, Wendy. Good to see you.
Looking forward
Good see
to
you.
interviewing you tonight on the Lego channel. Everyone go check out Lego Law.
Hader has a question for you. In the return system, is there a way to refund cash with a dummy SKU or no SKU at all?
You have to have a SKU number to do the return. So there is a way you could return it, but it would have to have some sort of a SKU number to link it into the system. They can't just give you money for an item. It has to go through the system and it has to have a SKU number. It has to have something attaching it to something in Walmart. So you can't just return something and just get money for it and just say that's what the item is.
Follow up, Mr. Martinez.
As I understand it, every single item that gets returned or refunded has to have this SKU number attached to it, correct?
Yes.
So even if it doesn't have one, is there a refund or that's given or not?
We would go find an item that either has the same exact SKU number, or we would have to go through the system and find a SKU number for that.
And without a SKU number, would that ever be refunded?
No.
And whether it's a dummy number or a non-dummy number, was there ever a 5-gallon gas can returned on June 3rd of 2008 to the Walmart?
No, not that I researched. I didn't find anything that had a gas can involved in it.
Nope, nothing else.
Mr. Nerman.
No question.
Oh,
Researched. I didn't find anything that had a gas can involved in it.
Nope, nothing else. Thank you.
Mr. Nerman.
No questions, Your Honor.
Any other questions?
no questions from the defense. Nah, there's nothing to ask.
No, there's not.
Yeah,
I mean, at best, it's neutral. At worst, you just reinforce all the bad stuff. So
Yeah. This is one of these, a thorough witness with all the receipts, literal receipts. Yeah, not much to do. Yeah, go away, bring on someone we can try. I mean, yeah, this was a good witness.
Questions from the jury? Thank you. You may step down. The state may call its next witness.
State calls Chelsea Young.
Chelsea Young. Hey, Lefty is in the chat. Everyone go subscribe to Lefty. He plays video games and such. He's not very good, but it's a cool place just to hang out, make fun of him, talk about things.
Please come forward to be sworn.
Chelsea Young. Ooh, she looks old.
Can you spell your first and last name?
CHELSCY. Young, Y-O-U-N-G.
Raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
I think she goes to the gym. Those arms are a little too masculine for me.
Yeah, that's a CrossFit body who has trained so hard she needs to enhance the upper level.
She should wear sleeves. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but she's probably very proud of her arms.
That's true. See, my self-esteem is so high that I don't need to go to the gym.
In England, there's a bar called the Gym.
Well, okay, I'd go to that bar or that gym.
Yeah, that way I can. Where have you been? At the gym. Why do you smell like alcohol? Don't know.
Looking forward to some pro gameplay. You might have subbed to the wrong channel.
Your name, please?
Chelsea Young,
And who do you work for?
Tesoro.
If you don't mind pulling the
Some
microphone.
big shoulders too. She's like a swimmer.
And what is Tesoro? What kind of business is Tesoro?
We're an oil company.
And what does Tesoro do? Do they sell gas, or explain to me what goes on with Tesoro?
We sell gas mostly on the West Coast, gas stations.
And so what do you do for them?
I'm a manager in the IT department.
And what are your duties in the IT department? What is it that you do with regard to the gas stations in the West Coast area?
We support all of the
Are you
equipment
also a
from
bodybuilder?
the gas pumps into the store, fuel and merchandise sales, supporting any IT-related issues, making sure that everything's functioning, the record-keeping, accounting data, credit card data, every kind of sale that happens inside and outside the store.
When you say inside or outside of the store, are we talking about gas stations?
Yes.
And with regard to outside of the store, if there's a purchase of gasoline outside of the store, is your area or the place where where do you work? What town do you?
I work in San Antonio, Texas.
And with regard to any transaction that is done, for example, in a gas station in the West Coast, do you keep records of that at your office in Texas?
We do. We have records of every transaction inside and outside at every station.
So how does that work? If somebody, for example, is at the gas pump and they take a credit card and they swipe it through, what ends up happening to the record-keeping function of that swiping of the credit card? Does that go to you? Does that go to them being a local affiliate, or does it go to both? How does that work?
It goes to both. It's stored locally at the store, and then it's backed up to our office for record keeping. We've got archive data. All of the credit card and transactions for accounting is all taken care of at the San Antonio office.
And at the San Antonio office, when there is that, again, we're keeping with the outside, when there is that swipe of that credit card, does the record that gets generated, does that get generated at the time that, or near the time that the person swipes the credit card? Is that when it gets generated?
It's real time, give 2 to 3 minutes.
And with regard to it being generated, is it generated, this record in San Antonio, is it generated with the information, if you will, from, for example, the credit card?
I was just thinking about her forehead.
And do you keep the whole?
I was just thinking about her forehead has, like, she exercises her forehead as well. Oh, God, this woman. She picks things up and puts them down.
Maybe she's a boxer and used the Amicus cream to cover up the bruises.
This woman is something else.
credit card number, or do you just keep certain digits?
We keep, due to PCI, we keep certain digits.
You used an acronym there. What was that?
It's PCI compliance. We can't keep cardholder information, the full digits any longer. We can keep the last four of the card.
So apparently, in order to be compliant with whatever regulation is out there, you can't keep the whole number, but you just keep the last four numbers, right?
Correct.
And those last four numbers, are they transmitted as part of this sale that's going on to your office?
Yes, the full transaction data is processed over to credit card. For the IT department, it's the last four of the card and the cardholder's name.
And are these records kept in the normal course of business by Tesoro as part of their business practice?
Yes.
And you're one of the individuals that's in charge of this particular area, correct?
Correct.
And so what about if we have a transaction inside of the store and, again, a credit card is used? Is it the same procedure or is it a different
She's a
procedure?
It's the same
world-class.
And so are those, again, those
Bodybuilder.
records that are generated inside the store or from a transaction inside the store, are they kept in the normal course of business as you described by Tesoro?
Yes.
Ma'am, with regard to somebody, let's say, generally speaking, if they go out to the gas pumps outside, and let's say that they swipe the card 2 times. Let's assume that for this hypothetical. What happens if in that short period of time, that same individual goes to swipe the card a 3rd time? Do they get the gas dispensed if they're outside, or does something trigger? Is something triggered at Tesoro?
It'll give them an AB transmission error. The AB transmission error on the 3rd credit card swipe is a method of fraud prevention. So on the first 2 card swipes, the transactions would go through. On the 3rd card swipe, the customer would be forced to go inside to the store and present the card to the cashier so that the cashier can identify that the person using the card is the cardholder, and they can process the sale at the register.
It's not that the sale won't go through, it's just that the person is being required to go inside, then, right?
Correct.
And it's a fraud prevention sort of issue, correct?
Correct.
Let's take a look at some exhibits here. This is exhibit number 237.017. It does say Tesoro, and it does talk SLC. Is that Salt Lake City, Utah?
It is.
And you're familiar with
I
this
can
receipt you
redirect
looked at it
now.
before, correct?
Yes.
And is this Tesoro gas station one of the gas stations that provides the records to your division in San Antonio, Texas?
It is.
And if we look at it, it does talk about one regular, what are we talking about? Is this a sale of gas or is this a sale of something else?
The regular is the fuel, the regular fuel grade, and this was on pump number 2 for 9.583 gallons.
Okay. And if we look down here at the bottom, what is the date that this says that this transaction was approved?
June 6, 2008,
And the time, please?
4:05
And 42
a.m.
seconds?
Yes,
And that's AM is what, I think I cut you off, right?
correct.
And the individual whose card was involved,
Jodi Arias,
and the last 4 digits of the card she used was what?
2015.
Was this done at the pump or was this done,
This was done at the pump.
was this done
So can you move it back up?
this way?
To the bottom. I'm sorry, this was done at the register. At the very bottom, you see POS 1.
Okay, at the very bottom, you said something about POS. What is POS?
That's the register, point of sale.
All right,
so
and so
this-
then we have something down here. It says cashier, right?
Yeah, cashier number 180, which would be
And-
tied to somebody's name.
And then it has a date and a time, correct?
Correct.
If we then compare it to this 237.016, and if we go to the bottom of it, do we see a cashier here or not?
No, this is because it has the driver ID that indicates that it was done out at the pump.
So that this was done at the pump, correct?
Correct.
And what pump are we talking about?
This was also on pump number 2.
And what are they buying?
They bought regular fuel at 10.672 gallons.
And at a price of $3.85, correct?
Correct.
The time on this is what? Do you see that right there?
3:57
I feel
a.m.
like that's
If we take a look at the
expensive
previous
for
exhibit, which is
2011.
237.
One more time.
I said I feel like that's expensive for 2011. Was it $3 a gallon?
Yeah, I mean that's.
I mean, that's about what it's at now, right?
I have no idea about U.S. gas prices.
I mean, I'm in Michigan, so I'm not Arizona. I don't know. It just seems expensive for them. 3:57 a.m. Did Jodi use at 3:57? She did not. What does she use? She uses 9
Let's see
millimeter.
here. Today's
Or she
natural.
called it something silly.
Today's national average is $3.60. Arizona, $3.96 per gallon.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Yeah, so it seems high back in 2011.
Yeah, it does.
0.017. And we look at the time. You see that time there?
Yes,
Was this done after or before the previous sale?
after,
And they're both for gasoline, correct?
correct.
Ma'am, did you also have a chance to see whether or not there was a third transaction that was involved with this Tesoro?
Yes, we did find a third transaction.
And you did. Let me show you an exhibit to see if, and you don't need to refer to it if you don't, but if you do, let me know and we'll talk about that.
The defense counsel looks nervous.
Was there a third transaction?
There was.
And third transaction, was it after this one that was at 3:57, or was it after the one that was at 4:05 in the morning?
I believe it was after the 357.
So it would have been after this one right here, 3:57, which is exhibit number 237.016, correct?
Correct.
In terms of the time, if I show you exhibit 635, will that refresh your recollection as to the time? Just look at the time when that transaction took place.
Yes. It was at 4:01.
So if
Talking about the prices on gas, I believe right about now it is 19 Swedish krona per liter. The 18, that is buck
So that's
70.
$1.90.
$1.08.
$1.
Yeah.
Yeah,
$1.70.
$1.80.
Yeah, something like that. And a gallon is how many liters?
It's like 2.8 liters or something.
Yeah, so our gas price is just over 420, 425, something like that.
That's comparable.
Yeah.
If that one was at 4:01 in the morning, the second transaction, that would mean that the first transaction was at 3:57, right?
Correct.
4:01 is 4 minutes later, correct?
Correct.
Was that transaction at the pump or was that inside?
It was done at the pump.
And so now we have the two transactions going on. Was there a credit card that was used?
There was.
Was it the same credit card that was being used here, the one that ended at 2015?
It was the same credit card.
And how much gas was purchased?
I believe it was 40.
Well, let me show you exhibit 635 and see if that refreshes your recollection. Read it, and after you read it, see if that refreshes your recollection as to how much gas was purchased. Go ahead and read it to yourself.
It was 1960.
Go ahead and read it to
I'm
yourself.
sorry. I'm sorry. Yes.
All right, if I may have it back. How much gas was purchased?
It was $19 and
No, in terms of the amount.
it's 5 gallons.
And what was the amount?
19 and some change.
All right, take a look at exhibit 635. That refreshes your recollection as to the amount.
1965.
Okay. So if this was the second transaction that was involved, and this
Everyone go sub to Veal. And happy birthday if it is your birthday. Or if, so Vielhammer says thank you. So it is your birthday. Happy birthday, Vielhammer.
Yeah, happy birthday, Vielhammer.
And everyone go sub to him. He's the one that's put all this quality video together for us.
Yep.
here was the third transaction, exhibit 237.015. In terms of sequencing, because it had already been, the card had already been used twice outside, is that when the rule about fraud comes in and the person has to go inside? Is that how that works?
That's correct.
So in this case, how many transactions for gas was there?
3.
And there was initially exhibit 2, 37.016. How many gallons of gas were purchased?
10 gallons, 10.672 gallons.
672. And then the next one was 5 gallons, correct?
Correct.
Or approximately. And then the last one under 237.017 was how many gallons?
9.583.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Cross-examination?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Showing you exhibit 237.017. We were just looking at a moment ago. This is your store in Salt Lake City, correct?
That's correct.
In your capacity, what was your job title again?
I'm a manager at IT.
Okay. In your job capacity then as an IT manager, would you have any knowledge about whether or not someone can pay at the pump with cash at this store?
They cannot pay at the pump with cash.
Okay. They can pay inside with cash?
That's correct.
And if someone pays inside with cash, the cashier wouldn't collect personal information, name, driver's license, anything else. They say they want $20 on pump 2, they get $20 and that's the end of it, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So if someone wanted to make a cash transaction, the transaction wouldn't contain their name, credit card number, and the time they did it, would it?
No, it would not.
Thank you, ma'am.
Redirect.
But in this case, ma'am, the transaction that took place inside the store as set out in Exhibit 237.017, was that cash or was that credit?
This was credit.
And was it for items such as potato chips or other items like that, or was it for gas?
It was for gas.
And how much gas was purchased by Jodi Arias on June 6th of 2008 at 4:05 inside of this store?
Objection, counsel.
What is the purchase amount here?
Objection, beyond the scope.
Approach, please.
You know what, Lefty? Next time I'm definitely going to have something playing on this TV.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that copyright claim. Haven't we had enough of copyright claims lately?
Oh, no. I was just going to put up some quality Lefty gameplay behind me or something.
Ah, okay.
And what's the amount that was a credit transaction, correct? And what's the amount that was paid on this credit transaction?
$36.98.
I don't have any other questions.
Any questions from the jury for this witness? Thank you. You may step down. The state may call its next witness.
State called Deanna Reed.
Walks down like this.
You may.
She's so big she can't put her arms down.
I mean, after looking at the first witness, I assumed there would be more personal friends today. But
That's
apparently,
what I thought.
yeah. But it was that guy and then clerks.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I am on the boat today, Wendy.
I wonder if they are claiming cumulative, if he's calling yet another one about receipts. Your Honor, this is damaging to our defense.
It's a great movie.
That's a long sidebar.
Hey, Fiery Red. Yes, everyone needs to go check out Shani's stream as a fundraiser for Fiery Red Podcast. Go check out Fiery Red Podcast as well.
Yep.
And join us all over there later.
Yeah. After my...
I'll be over there in like a half hour or so.
Yeah. I will redirect from my Serial Killer Saturday stream to Shanigram's. I will redirect to my Serial Killer Saturday, which is after this stream. And once that is over, I will redirect from that to Shanigram. And if I still have energy, I will join that stream.
Sounds good.
Had he decided to go behind your...
Maybe not. She looks like she had a 3-foot neck.
Oh,
that's not flattering.
that is not a good look. No, the face. There's no. It just. It's like a kindergartner drew a human. I don't know.
It's a Mars Attacks woman.
I don't know what that is. I don't that's just a bad angle. I don't know. That's bad all around.
Yeah.
Back and start seeing people at the beginning or the middle of the relationship, was there any way that you would have been able to find out that you know of?
No.
So he tells you this, and so is that sort of the time that you break up?
Yes, it is.
And you return then in what?
Okay, so this is Travis' ex-girlfriend. Well, everybody is his ex-girlfriend.
Did we just jump into this? What happened?
Yeah, it was just transitioned for some reason.
Okay. That's weird.
For example, had he decided to go behind your back and start seeing people at the beginning?
Yeah, this is Deanna Reed, Travis' friend.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So we get, yeah.
Or the middle of the relationship, was there any way that you would have been able to find out that you know of?
No.
So he tells you this, and so is that sort of the time that you break up?
Yes, it is.
And you return then in what? What year do you return in month?
I returned in November of 2001.
And when you returned, what city did you return to? Where were you living back then?
I was living in Riverside, California.
And where was Mr. Alexander living back then?
He was also living in Riverside.
Did you then, after you came back, did you have occasion to start meeting with him, talking with him, or seeing him, or anything like that?
Yes, several weeks after I had been home from my mission, we started talking again, and I would see him at church. And so we began talking and being friends again.
And as you began to talk and you became friends, did this become more than a friendship?
It did. Yeah, we began dating again.
And about when was that, if you returned in what, the end of 2001, when would this be that you started to date again?
In the beginning of 2002.
And when you began dating in 2002, was it a situation where he could date other people or just you, or were you guys exclusive, or did you talk about it?
At that time, we were exclusive when we started dating again. In 2002.
And was this in Southern California again?
It was, yes.
And while you are continuing to date in Southern California, did there come a time when there was a move from the Southern California area?
Yes, in 2004.
So it looks like from 2001 to 2004, you're dating in Southern California?
Yes.
And during that time, you and he are dating exclusively then, right?
We are from 2002 to 2004.
During that time, did there would come a time when you and he had some, for example, any disagreements during that period of time?
Sure, we had arguments or disagreements just like any normal couple.
And during those disagreements, would he ever, in any of those disagreements, he ever curse at you?
No, never.
Would he ever call you names?
No, he did not.
And during any of those times, did he ever strike you or physically advance on you or inflict any physical violence on you?
No, never.
And this was when you came back in around 2002 to when?
To when I moved in 2004.
And you said that you moved in 2004. So that was a continuous portion of the relationship then, approximately 2-3 years, something like that?
Yes. Yeah.
And when you moved, where did you move to?
I first moved to Phoenix.
And you were the first one to move?
No, actually, he was the first one to move, and he moved to Mesa.
And why did he move? You said, where did he move to?
To Mesa on Queensboro.
So is that the address where he was killed?
Yes.
And so when he moved there, you know why he moved to Mesa?
Objection.
Yes, I had a job in Irvine, California.
Seems a legal conclusion.
Knox Company.
I don't know.
And the entire corporate office moved to Phoenix, Arizona from Irvine, California. And I agreed to go with them and help in the transition. And so I was moving to Phoenix, and Travis, had wanted to buy a house and thought that Phoenix or Mesa in particular would be a good place to buy a house.
Why would it be a good place to buy a house in Mesa?
Because just the pricing for homes was better than in Southern California.
So who came out here first, you or Mr. Alexander?
Mr. Alexander did.
And then you came afterwards?
I did. A few months later, I moved out.
During the time that you were apart, what year again was that?
That was in 2004.
Do you remember the months that this was?
I believe it was in April of 2004.
And during that time, in April of 2004, that you were apart, did you still continue to be boyfriend and girlfriend?
Yes.
And so then you move up here. Did you move in with him?
No, we did not move in together. I had my own apartment in Phoenix.
And when did you arrive here? If you could give me the month, perhaps, and maybe the year.
When I moved into the apartment, that was in April of 2004.
And did you and Mr. Alexander continue to see each other?
Yes, we did.
Did you continue to date exclusively?
We did.
And did you continue to date for how long?
Then we dated until we broke up in 2005.
And about when in 2005 a month?
It was around the end of 2005.
And during that time, from April of 2004, when you came out here, and the end of 2005, did you have occasion to be with him on a, if you will, continuous basis?
Yes, we saw each other all the time.
Would you visit him at his home?
Yeah, I was there often.
And would he visit you at your place?
Yes.
And during this time, was there occasions where you and he would have disagreements?
There would be, but it wasn't very often. And we never really got mad at each other. We had a fun relationship and we liked being together.
But if, let's say that there was a disagreement, was there ever an occasion when he would scream at you?
No.
Was there ever an occasion where he would curse at you?
No.
Any occasion where he ever laid his hands on you?
No.
So who broke off the relationship at the end of 2005?
I did at the end of 2005. We had been dating for a while at that point, and I was ready for marriage. And at that time, he wasn't. And because of that, I felt like I needed to move on with my life and that we would be better dating other people so that I could get to that point of getting married.
And I assume that
Jodi just discovered she was the fallback girl.
Or that Travis has done this with a lot of people.
Yeah, that too.
you were the one that actually gave him the news.
Yeah, at his house one evening, we sat down. I told him we needed to talk about our relationship. And we talked about it, and I told him that this is what I wanted. And if he didn't want to get married, then I was going to need to move on, and we were both going to need to move on it. We had dated for long enough. And then at that point, he began to cry, and so did I. And we decided that we would remain friends.
And at that time, when you were having this conversation, and he's emotional, and you described yourself as being emotional, at any point did he become physical, such as throwing you down, put his hands on you in any way, shape, or form?
Absolutely not.
Did he curse at you in any way?
No, he did not.
And did he raise his voice in any way?
No, he never raised his voice to me.
And so you have this conversation, you break up, and are you still living in Phoenix up north?
Yes, at that point I had moved, well, there was a time when I moved to Mesa and was living there for a while with my sister.
And so was this when you broke up with him?
Yes, and then soon after the breakup, I moved up to North Phoenix.
So at that time of the breakup, you had actually moved to Mesa, living with your sister.
Yes.
And after the breakup, you moved to Phoenix.
That's correct, yeah.
How far away was your home from his, the one that was in Phoenix? How far away was it in terms of travel time?
When I lived up in North Phoenix, I was at least 45 minutes from Travis's house.
And even though you were 45 minutes away, did you and he continue to socialize?
We did. I talked on the phone with him often.
And during that time, when you guys broke up, did you have occasion to start doing this text messaging thing, or was that not around so much back then?
Yeah, we didn't text all that much, mostly just talking on the telephone.
And when you and he would continue to talk as friends, any indication that he was ever, if he ever got angry at you, that he would ever scream at you?
No, he wouldn't.
Any time that he ever got angry, that he would call you names during that time?
No.
Did he ever physically touch you in an inappropriate fashion, in other words, violently during that time?
No, he would never do that to me.
Did you continue staying here in the Phoenix area or not?
Yes, I was in North Phoenix.
And you stayed there, and you're still there now?
No, I'm not there now. Sorry, I moved from that apartment in North Phoenix back to Riverside, California in 2008.
In what year?
2008.
And about what month did you move back?
I believe it was May of 2008.
And why did you move back to Riverside in May of 2008?
I moved back because I had quit my job. And I planned on just staying with the Knox company to help them transition, and ended up staying out here for, about 5 years or so. And I didn't plan on doing that. And so I wanted to then go back and start going back to school and do what I really have always wanted to do, which was teach school.
And are you teaching now?
I work for the Riverside School District as an instructional aide for special needs students.
And do you have a degree?
I do.
What is your degree in?
I have a bachelor's degree in liberal studies.
Going back to the time that you were with Mr. Alexander and you and he were dating monogamously, did there ever come a time that you ever saw
what was that?
Would come up to Mr. Alexander to discuss whether or not he would...
What?
What did he say? He tried to say monogamously, and he did not get it out successfully.
That you were with Mr. Alexander and you and he were dating monogamously, did there ever come a time that you ever saw when other people would come up to Mr. Alexander to discuss whether or not he was chaste? In other words, whether or not he was engaging in sexual relations?
Yes, I would. People like to joke around with him a lot, and he liked to joke around. And so sometimes people would come up to him jokingly and teasing him about that.
And teasing him that he was chaste or not?
That he was a virgin.
And what would his response be? Would he say, yes, I am, or no, I'm not? What would his response be?
He would just laugh about it at first. He would laugh and then quickly change the subject, but leaving the impression that he was.
That he was what?
That he was a virgin.
And so, did you ever hear him during the times that he was asked, did you ever hear him say or proclaim that he was?
No.
But you did see this exchange between him and other people though, right?
Yes, I did.
You said that you and he broke up in 2005, and yet you moved back in May of 2008 back to Riverside, correct?
Yes.
During that time, that period that you were broken up, did you continue seeing Mr. Alexander?
Yeah, we were good friends.
And during the time, for example, that you were boyfriend and girlfriend, did you ever see any indication that he had, for example, photographs of little boys?
No.
Did you ever, at any occasion, see anything or any photographs of little girls that he had?
No.
Did you have occasion to be up in his bedroom?
Yes. Yeah, I was up there all the time at his house. I was in his bedroom all the time at his house.
Any indication, for example, that there were any toys or any kids' toys or anything like that?
No.
Did you ever get on his computer to look at things?
No.
So you've never actually went on the computer then, correct?
No, I don't think I've ever been on his computer.
And with regard to the computer, who bought it?
I bought that computer.
And was it a gift from you to him?
It was a Christmas gift.
What year did you buy it, do you know?
I don't remember what year it was.
And during this time that you and he were friends, did you, for example, continue to come on over to his house?
Yes, I did.
Do you know whether or not he had a pet?
Yes, he has a dog named Napoleon.
And who has that dog now?
I have that dog.
And with regard to during the time that, again, during this time period where you guys were, did you continue being close?
What?
They were that close that afterwards she took Napoleon after Travis died.
Yep.
They were still in contact and apparently good friends. That's the one thing about him. He kind of played the field. He would never commit. He used women. He was a player, and he never let them go. When he broke up with them, they were always still around.
Yeah.
So weird.
Yeah.
Close friends such that you would tell each other whatever things that close friends tell each other.
Yeah, we did. We trusted each other.
And at any time during that time, did he ever scream at you obscenities or anything like that?
No, he didn't. Our relationship wasn't like that.
And at any time, did he ever physically touch you in any way inappropriately, for example, striking you or anything?
No.
Did he ever curse at you during that time when you left in May of 2008?
No, he didn't.
And even after you left in May of 2008, did you continue to have contact with him?
Yeah, I did.
And did you have contact with him, including these text messages?
Yeah, we would text sometimes.
And would you also talk on the telephone?
Yeah, we would talk on the telephone and text, but mostly talking on the telephone.
How about emails, that sort of thing? Would you do that?
Every once in a while, yes.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Approach, please.
Oh. Approach without the lawyers asking for it. Okay. That's...
Well, the judge could just talk about schedule. Hey, we got to leave early or whatever.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take the noon recess at this time. Please be back in the designated area at 1:25. Please remember the admonition. Have a nice lunch. You are excused.
I mean,
everyone go subscribe to Vielhammer.
Yeah, everybody. Now, I know technically we have 10 minutes left, but this is a good cutoff point, I believe.
Yeah, I agree. This is a good spot to stop for the day.
Yeah. So
we Nick has his. I can redirect now, so I'm going to redirect you guys over to Nick's serial killer Saturday, and because that's starting in about 20 minutes or so.
I will
so
start
you guys
it.
Can go check
I will go over and start it. So I have everything set up almost.
Okay.
So it will be a good transition over, and then I will from that redirect to Shani Graham's fundraiser.
Yes, and I'm going to head over to Shani Graham's fundraiser for a little bit, in a little bit, and then remember 9:00 tonight on my other channel, which I have put the link in, but I didn't pin it or anything, so I'll have to put it in again. I will be interviewing Wendy H. along with Brandy Churchwell and Valhalla. So if you like any of those people, or if you don't like them, you just want to talk trash in the chat, join us over on Lego Law, Life, and Libation tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah. Okay. While I get the other stream going, Dave, you have access, so you can play the things, can you?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm
okay.
good to go.
Yeah. I will see you in a couple of minutes over at Serial Killer Saturday, and it's Detective Horsapa still on the stand.
Okay. Say that again.
Horsapa.
Right,
okay.
Horsapa.
Yeah. So see you there in a few minutes.
Sounds good. And to answer your questions, yes, I'm not you, the chat.
Okay.
You can go now.
Yeah.
I was talking to the chat for a minute to keep it going, because I'm going to send you guys over to Nick in just a few minutes. But yes, I am on my boat. I will not be here for the Lego stream, though. I will be in my shop. But don't forget, come with your questions for Wendy. If you guys don't know Wendy H, she is usually emceeing, hosting our Lego streams, pulling up chat. Tonight, she's going to be building a Lego, and the responsibility of pulling up the chat is going to be Brandy Churchwell. She's going to be emceeing, so she'll be there. But come with your questions. It'll be a lot of fun. And it's an opportunity just to hang out and build some Lego. And it's a Mother's Day special, so that's why we're interviewing Wendy. I have 2 Lego builds I'm doing tonight, both for my wife and for my mother. Yeah. She's Fedorowski's is a bit behind, I think. So with that, tonight, pink lipstick Lego. There you go. There is the book. Yeah, Fed's a little behind, but that's awesome. All right. I think he's good to go. Wait, hang on. Let me make sure he is up and running. Oh, why is it I need a new mouse. My mouse isn't working. It's just me looking into the camera. All right. Yep, we are good to go. Okay, and with that, we will hit the exit. The outro. Now I got it. Right. Y'all have a good night.
The State of Arizona versus Jodi Arias, verdict, count 1. We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn in the above entitled action upon our oaths, do find the defendant as to count 1, first-degree murder.